Today stream we're going to be trying to dive into what is meaning in a postmodern society. What does it mean to have a subjective meaning? What we really mean by meaning? What we mean by postmodern society? And if those variables conflict, and what each individual person has to do to experience a sense of meaning. And to the detriment of everybody listening and listening in the future, this is entirely off the cuff. So we'll see how it goes. But this is my line of thought for today. I had a stream and broke that up into some clips, and I essentially suggested that by taking responsibility for your short-term experience and the things that are going on in your life, you can derive meaning from connecting yourself to those responsibilities. And I had a comment that suggested that meaning and purpose. So, disagreement with the initial premise that taking on more responsibility would not inherently give you meaning, but it really depends on what kind of bucket you're using to pull out these definitions with. If we're talking about meaning from if you went to a therapist and you said my life has no meaning and I feel terrible all the time, well, they're going to try to give you implementable steps to improve the feeling of hopelessness, to improve the feeling of meaninglessness, to try to wean you off the nihilism, to make your day-to-day experience more meaningful pragmatically. But if we're talking about capital M meaning, then we get into the postmodern argument. And ever since in postmodernism, there's you can get really nuanced with these definitions and different time frames and stuff, but I see it the most simply put as the dawn of information. So ever since information has been widely public, basically, since the Nietzsche's gay science, he calls it way before it is, but the quote unquote death of God and modern intervention has killed the story that has connected humanity for the last 1,000 years, or killed the narrative myth structures that helped bind everyone together. So whenever there isn't a story that binds everyone together that everyone agrees on, then you have fragments. You have no one really knows. Why is my title still say that? That's not the correct title. So, in a postmodern society, essentially no one agrees on the core tenet of what capital M meaning is, like the reason that everyone exists and how it all came to be and all that kind of thing. There is not a combining, or there is not an agreed upon narrative structure that everyone thinks to as the source or the reason why we all are here. Like, quite like I'm taking a course on Shakespeare, and in the Shakespearean tragedies and throughout Shakespeare's work, he would reference the Bible, and it was okay for him to do that because everyone knew the stories that he was talking about. Um, so, like the Hamlet, it references the story of Cain and Abel a couple times. So, whenever he throws out that narrative structure, is to provide a scene that everyone understands, and then everyone just is like, okay, I get the idea, let's move on. Because you can just say that, and then everyone knows what it means. Whereas nowadays, there's a lot of people that don't know the story of Cain and Abel from the Bible. So you get a lot of mixed interpretations of what capital M meaning is, and subjective truth, and if you can have a definitive truth, and all of these different things. But postmodernism, in a nutshell, is that no one agrees on anything as far as narratives that hold the society together and what the ultimate reason for everything is. So that's how I would define postmodernism. So at this point, you have the church will espouse one truth, and then you got different religions that will all espouse a different truth, and then you have philosophy that espouses, half the time philosophy espouses a question to ask, and then maybe it's answered and maybe it's not, but philosophy is a lot about asking questions. But you get your thought, and you can fall into a structure. So whether it be like from a scientific perspective, materialism, or find panpsychism, very unique. But you can have all these, but how many times are we going to lose connection? The core tenet is that no one agrees on any of it. So to bring back up Nietzsche, we talked about him kickstarting off this revolution of postmodernism via the announcement of the death of God and of gay science. And he kind of breaks it down into a couple different things that he thinks could be possible. One, people, adhere to a faith structure regardless of the push and pull of the narrative of the time, just for it's a necessary thing to have, just for the interconnection that a beneficial adversary, regardless if the tenets of the thing are false, it's better to have it than not, which is basically been the atheist position on faith structures. This is why they exist. It's evolutionary beneficial for a faith system to exist, for religion to exist. That's one of the things he thought. The second thing that he thought we would fall into organized governmental societies, like at the time socialism, which ended up becoming communism, but also, ideologies taking form in different ways. Like Marxism would be a good example. Just a culturally adherence to the idea everyone's a victim, and then powerful people below, and there's nothing that you can do, and communism stains or something like that. It's very like herd style thinking, like putting. It's very easy to cast blame on things that are not within your circle. If you have very limited knowledge about a thing, very easy to cast blame. It's like, oh, those billionaires, they're evil, and everyone's just out to get poor old me. But that is a way that thoughts and patterns will map itself in a world that very little people agree on anything. So it's very easy to fall into a Marxist ideology, because whatever is being pushed out as a narrative of the time, then if there is nothing else to cling on to, then that's what you cling on to. Like if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. So if you don't have a meta principle at your basis, then why would you not believe in Marxism if that's the only thing that's ever been espoused? If your entire life and you've been the victim, it would kind of make sense for you to think that way. But that's what happens in a postmodern society. There is no orienting bottom principle. So you have to. The third thing that Nietzsche thought is you would come up with your own principles, with your own Bible, if you will. Like what is the things that you're going to adhere to in your life, and you curate them yourself. And he almost thought of this as like an art project. Like you're a piece of art, and you decide the path that you want to take in order to create the ideal version of yourself. Now that gets into some hairy water. It's like, well, does that mean truth is subjective? And it's like, well, it depends on what you mean by truth, and then it depends on what you mean, like moral truths being subjective. I don't know what I think about that. I think it's an interesting thought. So it's like, what are the chances if you lived, hundreds of years ago, that you wouldn't have just fallen into what was culturally acceptable at the time? Like during the time of Shakespeare, whenever there would be a criminal that was going to be punished, executed, they would take the criminal out on the street. They'd be hung, severed, and spill their guts. They would also be quartered, so they would be hewn into 4 pieces, and so they'd be hung, severed, and quartered. And you would bring the kids. Like, this is a family event. It's like, oh, let's go watch this hung till near death, severed, spilling out his intestines, and then quartered, drawn into 4 pieces by either a mechanical machine or by horses. And this is something you took the kids to go see. Like, there is radical differences in culture as far as what we see as appropriate. Like, one of the biggest arguments of atheists that you will see for the Bible is there is no place in the Bible where it specifically condemns slavery. Like, it even goes into detail on how to hold in order and like treating your slaves well. And quite morally ambiguous on the treating slaves well, because if like one of the verses has to do with if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in order to be freed, then you would bring the kids. And it's like, well, if a slave should die in or from a beating, then you are at fault in some way. But if the slave recovers in 1 to 2 days, then you shouldn't be to blame. It's like society has changed a lot since then, and I don't think even from the Bible, it's like, and then biblical scholars, that's for the time. It's like, if it's a moral code all the time, then it probably shouldn't have. If you beat your slave and then he doesn't die, then you're okay. But you probably shouldn't do that. It's just a little smack in the hand. It's like, we change culturally. We change what I would suggest for the better culturally. Now that goes with its falls and with its rises, but we live in a world that mostly regards slavery as wrong. But any random person a couple hundred years ago would not espouse the same venomant characteristics and thought process as us. It's like today, surrounding the culture war, you have things like abortion, and there are radically two different sides to it. One side fervently feels like abortion is murder, and then the other side feels like it's an infringement of rights, and both sides like strongly hold these opinions. And it might be the case, if it goes one way or the other, that we look back on the bout in 200 years and say, wow, that was crazy that happened. Imagine, like, whatever, over time, there's a consistence, yeah, I can't say the word, it's got too many S's. There's an agreement that abortion is wrong, hypothetically. And in 200 years, we're all like, wow, like, millions of babies were dying every year. And at that time, they would all think that was wrong. Why would we let that happen? But when you're in the war of, when you're in the moment, it's like, of course, things look 20/20 in hindsight, because they always do. But when you're in the moment, there's a lot more ambiguity. So all that to say that the capital M question, the capital meaning question, that's really good for some. And you might derive value from that if you come across, a religious text that you feel speaks to you. If you become a Christian and that's what speaks to you, if you get entangled with any kind of religion and that's actually helping you grow, then maybe you found some kind of capital G, a capital M meaning in your life. But on an everyday practical scale, meaning can be introduced in a lowercase form. So if I were to do any task or anything at all, and I were to suggest that whatever I did was meaningful, all that essentially entails is that it was worth the time and effort that I put into it. It's like, that's a pretty simple definition of meaning. It's like, whatever you did, it was worth the time and effort. Like, if I bought a jacket and it's like, that was worth it. It's like, well, it was a meaningful experience to buy the jacket. That all just entails that whatever money that you put into it, it was worth that cost. The same thing you can do with, on a small scale with situations in your life. It's like, you might feel like you have a meaningful experience when you, like, take your kids to the park, or go on a nice date with your wife, or, do some, like, a lot of people derive meaning from, like, going to the gym, doing something beneficial for themselves, so that way doing something that promotes growth. So if we break down, lowercase m meaning this way, it's like doing things that are worth the pain, worth the cost, worth the suffering that you endure, then we could subvertly apply this to life in general. So if meaning is just something being worth the pain that you endure to achieve it, then a meaningful life is a life that is worth the pain that you endure. So regardless of what you do, you're going to have pain. You're going to have suffering. It's just a part of life. There's a Buddhist parable where the Buddha asked the man, it's like, so if I shot you with an arrow, that would suck, wouldn't it? It's like, yeah, that would be terrible. Please don't do that. I don't want to be shot with an arrow. It's like, yeah, okay. If I shot you with an arrow again in the same spot, that would suck even more, wouldn't it? It's like, yeah, I don't want to be shot with an arrow the first time. Definitely don't shoot me with an arrow again. And the Buddha was like, well, unfortunately, the first arrow is life. You're going to get that arrow regardless. You're going to get shot with the arrow of life. There's going to be pain. There's going to be growing. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be loss. But all these things just come with this concept of being human in general. But the second arrow is you. So you can choose a life that's worth living. You can choose like something that you would just be adamantly interested in if it were the case that it be presented. And you can make the first arrow worth it. But if you don't choose and you don't pursue things that you find valuable, meaningful, or that you want to solve, or on a daily basis do the things that will promote your growth long term, then you fall subject to the second arrow. So not only are you going to get the problems that come with life, but you're also going to get the problems that come from yourself. Like, assuming there is no precondition for you to have something like this, eating terribly unhealthy will cause you to be obese, and then you get all the disease factors and risks that comes with being obese. That's the second arrow. You didn't choose something. You didn't take the responsibility of your health. So you fell subject to the second arrow because instead of, choosing better foods to eat, you didn't choose better foods to eat, and you just kind of coast through. It's really easy to coast through on a day-to-day basis, but in the long term, you're going to get shot with that second arrow. So you can take responsibility and you can front load the pain. You can take the responsibility and take the problems that come with that up front to avoid the second arrow, or you can just take the second arrow. So that's a pretty good one to use. Like obesity, not eating healthy, not exercising. A healthy man has 100 dreams, but an unhealthy man only has one dream. So it's one of those things. Oh God almighty. Everybody forgot to hit the brakes to the last second, I guess. I've never actually seen that. Like 4 cars just switched lanes immediately. 2 of them went to the off ramp and then 2 of them went over. It's like, but it didn't even seem that bad. They just, I guess the first car just hit the brakes way late, and then everyone else got scared. Yeah, that was interesting. So, to tie this all back together, Nietzsche's thought was creating your own values, creating your own things. I would say uh, I would say that there is an extent that you can do that, but then you have to be very, very reliant on your own sense data that isn't structured in any way. So I wouldn't. What would be a good example of explaining this? Okay, so if I had a business, right, and it wasn't orderly. Let's say there was a lot of disorder in the business. There was a lot of chaos in the business, and FN, Frederick Nietzsche, FN, my business advisor came in and said, you have to create principles of how to run this business, and you have to come up with them and implement them in order to make this business run more effectively. That would be a stretch to be able to take whatever chaos I have in the business and just randomly make principles without any available metrics to test what's actually happening. So I might need to first ask all my employees what they feel about their job, get employee feedback of what's going on. Second, I need to, find out what are some of the bottlenecks in the company, like specific bottlenecks. What are the problems that employees are running into? It's like, and then break all these things down analytically before I just randomly go and if I just started and doing principles like, okay, let's say that people are not cooperating very good. It's like, okay, insert principle, be nice to each other. It's like, no one's going to really listen, including yourself. You're not going to listen to cliche principles that you set for yourself unless they're actually grounded in some kind of data, which is why I think meaning making works so well. Instead of setting a principle for yourself, you're basically mapping what actually works in reality and then just backtracking it onto your own life. So, for example, it's like, if you want to be more healthy, you're like, because it's like, why? Well, I want to, have long-term life. I don't want to be sickly when I'm older. It's like, why? Well, so I can spend more quality time with the people I love. It's like, you can backtrack all that down. Make sure that the root is actually something fundamental. And that, whatever you presuppose there, is kind of like your intrinsic meta-narrative. So if you want to be healthy, and the reason you want to be healthy is because you can spend time with the people you love and live and not have them, not to be dependent on anybody, well, then you have somewhat presupposed that value, and you can just have growth to that goal as a tangible thing versus trying to create cliche values and then extrapolating all of it off of a cliche value. So the things that you find important, you're automatically going to value to some extent. Everybody worships something. Some people worship alcohol. Some people worship, hedonism, the short-term whim. Some people worship a conception of God. And, there's only 30,000 different conceptions of God in Christianity alone, because there's 30,000 different sects of Christianity. But everybody puts something at the top of their priority chain, and that's what they worship. And you can call that God, or you can not call that God, but that's what they're paying attention to. Rather than extrapolating all that, we can take more minimal steps. So if one way to, like, it depends on what philosopher you're talking to, they'll just suggest that nothing is really provable except for the fact that you exist because you think so. At least in some form, something is thinking on your behalf somewhere. But how I might suggest that this car exists is like, well, I can see it, I can touch it, I can, use it. It gets me places. I can ask my friends, like, you see this phenomenon as well? It's like, this car exists. It's like, yeah, I see it. You can ride in it. Yeah, I can ride in it. It's like, so it's there. It's like we both think that it's there. It's like, yeah, it's there. Same thing happens for life situations. You can look at people that have got to the place that you want to get and then just backtrack what they did to get there. If someone is healthy, well, maybe eat healthier and exercise. It's like, that's pretty easy ways to make that part of your life more ordered. Another, if you are in a bad financial situation, you can make that a goal, and there's going to be things that you pay attention to things that you prioritize that will either help you or harm you from having a meaningful experience. So the things that are going to produce meaning are going to be the things that you take responsibility for, that helps you avoid the arrows of your own choices. So whatever, if you can avoid suffering, that'd be great. I want to articulate this better. This is what I was saying about it's off the cuff, so it's at the detriment of everybody watching and myself. But from a psychoanalytic perspective, well, no, let's not go that route. Okay, from a neuroscientific perspective, that you have reward systems in your brain set up for different things. So you have a dopaminergic system that rewards you for short-term maps. So your hypothalamus will control things, basic motivations like urine secretion, temperature regulation, sexual desire, anger, and some hunger. I think there's a sixth one. Not sure, but that's half of it. The other half is exploration and dopaminergic responses. So when you have this frame pop in your head, like, oh, I'm hungry, it's like, then your thought, how to procure some food, trying to go and get something to eat. When you walk into the kitchen, it's like you don't care how the table's arranged or what's sitting on the counter. You're like, let me find a sandwich. It's like that's all that matters in that moment. Once that frame is gone, once you get your sandwich and you eat it, it releases dopamine, and that makes you feel good for completing that frame. But as soon as that frame is over, you finish eating the sandwich, the dopamine is gone, and now it's done. And that's what happens when you practice hedonism. Whenever you practice hedonism, whatever is your shortest term desire, you go after that, and then you achieve it. You get a dopaminergic response, but then it's over. Then you have to find something different to give you that dopaminergic response. And a lot of times, it's a feedback loop. A lot of times you'll see like a symbol of chaos is a dragon that's consuming its own tail. It's talking about an infinite loop. It's like, well, how do you get loops like that in your life? It's like, well, when you discover that alcohol is a cure for your hangover, yeah, that's a loop. So the next day you automatically start with the thing that put you in that situation to begin with. It's like, that's a negative feedback loop. And that's how you create chaos in your life. So, what would be the opposite of that? Well, less long-term horizon. Trying to be on your own best side 30 years from now. That would be the people that can, subjugate themselves now to the benefit of themselves in the future. There's no difference between that and definitional maturity. So that's a way to think about it. The other system, there's a bunch of them, and I don't know all of them yet, but another one is serotonin. It is another chemical that's released in the brain, but serotonin is a mood regulating hormone, which means it's basically the feeling. Whenever serotonin is released, it basically comes across as the feeling of contentment, as something was meaningful, like just whenever you wake up and you just feel pretty good about yourself and about the world and optimistic, and that sort of vein. But serotonin is only released in pursuit of a goal. It's not when you achieve it. That's a dopaminergic response, but in pursuit of the goal. So with that all being said, that means that there are ways to behave from a neuroscientific perspective. So this isn't just, random, that will produce chemicals that will make you feel a certain way, that will subjectively give your life more or less meaning. So if you feel meaningless and you tend to do things that trigger a dopaminergic response, like constantly scrolling on TikTok, or binge eating, or binge watching television, or things that subjectively don't have meaning in and of themselves, they just make you feel good in the moment, that's like a band-aid. That covers up the feeling of you not really doing anything that you deem worthwhile. And there's good reason to not. I mean, some of the things that you do that are worthwhile actually require a lot of effort and thought. And it's like one of the most meaningful experiences you can have is getting married. And secondly, having children. It's like those things take work. Like in Genesis, the wife to Adam is described as his helpmeet, but in the original Hebrew, that was, I don't remember the word in Hebrew, but it means beneficial adversary. So your wife is your beneficial adversary. What does that mean? that means they're going to challenge you to grow. A lot of people don't want to grow. A lot of people don't want to, like, it takes effort to remove the things that are bad about yourself and then to achieve things that are better. Like, most of your brain is set up as inhibitory responses so that way you don't change. Therefore, changing is like something that everyone will naturally not be super adamant about. But if you can become a master of said change and pursue your growth, pursue growth as a, you know, essential, maybe one of the core tenets of your meta ethics, then you can kind of subvert all of that. You can use it to your advantage. You can, the growth to whatever extent, to the highest conceivable thing that you can imagine, or the best version of yourself, or the thing that you want to accomplish, will release the serotonin. It's like you're not going to get confidence through watching a YouTube video. It's like the reason you don't feel confident is because you don't have data. It's like you get confidence, like, okay, I'm a very confident door installer. I've worked as a lead door installer, not a lead the entire time, but I've worked in the door industry for 5 years, right? And I've been installing doors for a while. So I'm confident in my ability to do it. But that's because I've gone and installed thousands of doors. It's like you get confidence in anything that you do by sense data. If you go out in the world and you try to accomplish something and then you get a positive result, that's going to make you more confident. You become the hero that can accomplish said goal. It's like we don't write, like the knight in shiny armor at the beginning of the book isn't the hero. He only becomes the hero after he fights the dragon and wins. It's like you don't just a lot of people go through life and it's not like they really conceptualize this or anything like that. But to face the dragon, or you have to face the problem in order to prevail against it. Otherwise, you have to, think that avoiding your problems is somehow gonna help you master them. It's like, well, obviously not. Like, what's the common denominator from all the best athletes across the world? So they spent a lot of time developing and harnessing their skills. Even if they were naturally athletic, they still spent hundreds of hours diving into that skill. The best artists through the world, same thing. The best musicians, same thing. They all spent hours and hours and hours and hours perfecting that craft. And because they, sacrifice their short-term whims to that higher order goal, those things can derive more meaning. Want to circle this all back together. All that was to say that if you chase short-term pleasure, then you'll get a dopaminergic response, and that'll be good for about 5 seconds, and then the band-aid will be off again, and then you'll have to find something else to stop this perpetual bleeding of you feeling like there's nothing worth living for in the world. Or you can choose to set up a life that is worth the suffering that you endure, and that, to at least a certain extent, avoids you from enduring more suffering by your own fault, by your own decisions. It's like, well, how the heck do you do that? Make it sound so simple. If you look to your future and you think about what it really means to win your life. What are the things that you would actually like to see accomplished? What do you actually want to do with your time? What is the thing that if you accomplished it, you would be like, wow, yeah, that would be worth whatever I had to go through to get there. If I could, make some meaningful impact on that, then I would feel like the suffering that I've endured along the way would be worth it. Like for me, for example, I've started to make this channel because I want to make an impact on the mindset of youth and to help people get a bias for growth. And then on top of that, I also want to extend that to misfortunate individuals that didn't have a role model in their home. Um, one in four children are growing up without one of their parents present in the home for whatever reason. Like, that's terribly tragic, and all these people need role models. They need something to measure themselves against. So that's the gap that I'm trying to fill. And if I can make some kind of marginal difference in the amount of children that get abandoned by one of their parents, that would make whatever I have to do to get there meaningful. That would make it worth it. Even if it's just a handful of people. Like, I've chosen something that gives me meaning, and it makes everything that I do on a day-to-day basis more important and gives me something that I can actually aim for. It's like, if you don't actually have a goal or anything set out that you could possibly achieve, it's like, of course you can't even shoot your arrow, much less hit a target, because you don't know where the finish line is. You don't know where the target is. It's all completely a guessing game at that point. So of course you would aim at the short-term dopaminergic thing, because you don't know what success looks like. But you can define success for yourself, and then you can take on the responsibility to make that life yours. Like, coming into this thing that I'm doing now, it's like, it's required a lot. I have to, make these videos, think about the topics that I'm going to do, and then edit, not the lives, but I have to make the short clips and make sure that they look good, and then make sure that they're posting, and then make the long form standard content. And that's all processes that I have to think about and implement while I'm working a full-time job, while I'm a student, while I'm a father, while I'm a husband. It's like, I had to sacrifice a lot of hedonistic pleasures in order to pursue this higher order goal, because I can sit on my phone and play a game, and that would feel really good in the moment, but as soon as I get off of that, I'm bummed. It's like, dang, that sucks. I wanted to keep playing, but you're not going to sit and play your video game for the rest of your life. It's like, you're not, and then if you did, hypothetically, if we could hook you up to a machine and you play a video game for your entire life and you're provided with sustenance, maybe meaning is subjective and you think that would be meaningful, but I would say for the strong majority of people, they would say that was a waste. They would think that they would wasted their life. It's like, okay, then what are things that you could do that wouldn't be a waste by your own definition? It's like, a lot of the standard things is getting married. It's like, that's a call to growth. It's a call to become better than you are. Having children, even bigger. It's like, now someone is looking to you as an example. So you best have your crap together, or be getting it together, or at least making an effort to get it together, those things are meaningful. If you don't have those, you have to create the problem for yourself to solve. Probably something bugs you. You probably found out some information that annoys you about the world. It annoys me to death that, for example, 70% of young black males don't have a father present in the home. Annoys me to death. I want to see change in that particular realm. Maybe your passion is animal brutality, or maybe it's, some other random thing that just irks your nerves. Maybe it's health related, maybe it's not. Maybe it's, maybe you're a philosopher trying to figure out the actual capital G meaning of life. Whatever it is, there's something, a question that annoys you that you don't have the answer to, that you could make some sort of meaningful effort to try to bridge that gap. And it's like, don't just go say that, oh, the problem's too big, so I can't have no impact on it. It's like, it's extremely close-minded. You don't, whenever you take a challenge on head on, you become the person that can overcome the challenge. And that's the same with everyone that's ever done anything. Before humans, created a city, we weren't the humans that could create a city. We were Neanderthals or whatever. And we didn't organize structure, or not to that thing. But then we became a group that could do that. Then it progresses. Once the first was built, we became the species that could build skyscrapers. But before that, we weren't. Once the knight in shiny armor defeats the dragon, he becomes the knight that defeated the dragon. He's not the knight that defeated the dragon before then. You become, your potential calls you. You don't call your potential to you. You have to go get it. You have to battle. I'm using the knight and the dragon reference a lot, but you have to face the problems in your life to become the person that can overcome them. You can't hide from them and then be able to overcome them. So these, things that you do, you can set parameters around them. Well, rather than making values, you can see the decisions that you make and how they're affecting your life from an empirical point of view. It's like, if you start taking care of your health better, you'll probably feel better. And it's like, okay, well, that's good. I have more energy and all these things. Like, you can take it from that perspective. Some things that you do will just give you a better result because there's a natural order to the way the world works. You can't have your cake and eat it too. There is no contradictions on the earth. Not true philosophically contradictions. It's like, you can't eat like crap all the time and then not end up with health problems. It's like, the universe isn't just going to let you slip away with yourself that you basically deserve. The universe might not let you slip away with stuff that you don't deserve, but it's like, if you do end up, you can choose to wallow in the pits of despair, or you can choose to take whatever energy, time, and health you have left and put it to something useful. Like Nietzsche has been a common theme of this live. He was addled and sick for almost his entire adult life, ever since he was 25 till his early demise when he was in his, I want to say 50s or 60s. He had an early death, and but throughout that entire time, he still is one of the most influential thinkers of all time. So he could have wallowed in his despair, and then we would have never had any of Nietzsche's writings. So, choose to life. You decide what would make meaningful, and then set a plan. Tell what would your life look like if you won. Set that plan, and then break it down to the most minimal thing. What would your life look like if you actually won? Break that down to the most minimal thing that you have been avoiding that you can do right now. It's like some of the goals that y'all that house would be like really big, powerful goals that maybe culture shattering or big dreams. But right now, you're still living in your parents' house and your room's a wreck. It's like there's going to be a long distance between right now and that big goal, but there are implementable steps that can be made right now. Take the smallest action that pushes you towards that goal. Like mine, for example, I had to start this YouTube channel. I had to start making videos, and from the first live that I did, I spoke terribly, and I'm still all over the place. But over time, I'm going to get better at this, and then that effort will propagate. After I do this for 100 hours, I'm going to be good at it. Most people just aren't willing to put in that first 100 hours of effort. Like you fighting the urge to just go with the most short-term hedonistic thing, if that's what you've been doing for the last 10 years, it's going to be extremely hard. It might be, in order to clean up your room, like the first day we just need to clean up a drawer, like clean up one of the drawers in your dresser, then the next day, then the next day, then the next day, and then if you have 6 drawers, then your dresser's organized and clean. Then work on the bed. And then, take it to whatever extent that you'll actually complete the task at hand. And these things, taking the responsibility over these short-term things in your life, will give you lowercase m meaning. It's subjective, but not in the sense that it's only possible for certain people. You can marginal difference in your life, noticeable difference in your life by putting order to things that are unordered around you. Like in the story of Genesis, God descends upon the waters in verse 2. But the waters aren't separated until like verse 4 or verse 6. So that derives the question, what the heck is the waters? Well, in the ancient Hebrew, the word is tohu bafohu. And I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. But essentially it means the pre-cosmogonical chaos, or it means potential. So God descends upon potential to create the order that is good. Nice narrative, little flow there. Then, God creates the world and everything, and all that's good. Then He creates man, and that's very good. And what does He say? We create man after our own image. And all that we know about this figure is that he's the person or spirit or being or entity or thing outside the universe, whatever you conceptualize God as, that creates the order that is good out of chaos or out of potential. And chaos is potential. That means that we are set up from that narrative structure to create order out of the chaos that surrounds us. If you live in a state of chaos, you're not going to thrive in that. There's no way for you to be mentally secure. And if we talk about mental health, it's like mental health is kind of a funny construct because there is no mental health in an insane asylum. Because everything that surrounds you is off the walls crazy. And there is, like, there was a quote, I don't remember who to credit for it, but a mother's only as happy as her most miserable child. It's like, it's connected to your social fabric. So a human obviously isn't going to thrive in a purely chaotic environment. If everything surrounds you is chaotic, then you can't hope for order, or you can't hope for long-term order, because you can't see past, the bills that are due next week. You can't see past the piles and piles of junk that's built up in your room or in your house. You know the difference between a house and a home. Everywhere in your house that you haven't properly attended to and paid attention to, all of those places don't feel like your home. They're just a part of the house. Oh yeah, that part of the house, that closet. Yeah, I hate that closet. It's because you haven't given it proper attention. You haven't put the order to the chaos. In a course that I took, they break down the neuropsychology of the brain, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about left brain, right brain, and this and that, and then they'll suggest that one's mathematical and one's linguistic, and then this and that. A good way to represent it is one deals with order, like mathematical systems, and then one deals with chaos, dreams, things that you think that you don't know, the unexpected, the things that are a new phenomenon. Part of your brain works on the new, and part of the brain works on the stuff that you already know. And they have the dichotomy. So that means even from a neuropsychological perspective, we're set up to create order out of chaos. So however you can implement that in as small of a way in your life immediately will provide marginal difference. And ultimately, if you do that in service of your higher order vision, your top of Jacob's ladder vision for yourself in the future, all these things will be meaningful because they're steps up the staircase to your higher order goal. And that will release serotonin from a physiological perspective. It will be beneficial. So that was the thought process for today. Sorry if it was really bouncy, but like I said, it was off the cuff for everyone's detriment. But hopefully we ended up clear enough, and if you stick around, maybe I'll get a little bit better at this over time. So this is Dylan James Grove. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.